Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Passive Income MBA show, your source for investing in real estate syndications. Today, I'm so excited for our guest, Bob Couture from Property Group. Bob, it's great to have you on.
Suja, wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. So, Bob Cashflow Couture is the managing partner of CP Property Group, which specializes in commercial real estate, syndications, and investments. Bob, I'd love for you to take us back in time for a bit and give us an overview of where you started in real estate, why you started in real estate, and how you got to where you are now.
All right. So I started off in kind of bridging the corporate world and military. So I was a member of the California Army National Guard. I was an officer there. I had multiple deployments, and it took me away from my job at Northrop Grumman, which is an aerospace and defense company. And so I was away for almost 5 years. And when I came back, the company was different. I was different. I knew I wanted to go on and do something for myself. And um, I decided I'd get into house flipping. And from house flipping, I was living in Los Angeles, and when I looked at the money I had to kind of get started, it looked like my dollars could go much further if I went back east from where I was from. So the Springfield, Mass area. I started house flipping over there. My dad was semi-retired, so he was a built-in mentor. My wife was telling me to get into real estate. Her family's in commercial real estate, so that seemed to be the goal, and but my first few houses they didn't flip, and so I became an accidental landlord. And then the mailbox money started coming in. I was like, wow, this isn't so bad. So I continued on house flipping, but started to acquire more single family properties. And as I looked at that, I was like, this is not going to scale very well. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. And so I knew I wanted to get into some multifamilies. Uh, and lo and behold, I came across a guy here in Hermosa Beach whose family had been doing syndications for his dad had been doing it for 40 years. And we got to talking about real estate. And so he wanted to implement that model back in Maine. I had the resources in Massachusetts, and so we decided to do it in Springfield, Mass. So and we had a third partner at that time, and then we created that company. We started with like a small four family that we did just as a partnership, did an 8 unit just as a partnership, and then went into small syndication. It was a 12 unit, then on to 20, and then started building from there. And that's kind of what brought me to this. And as I look at that model, I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's a great, I think of it as like a great product for busy professionals who know that they want to be in real estate, but don't want to deal with anything. And I'll steal what one of my investors says is that I like syndications because I can write a check, collect checks, but I don't have to deal with anything in the middle. And I think that's perfect. I've continued to acquire property on my own. My wife and I have our own portfolio. We do it on syndications, and then we help others do it for themselves, either single families or small multifamilies, and then some get involved in the syndication. So that's kind of been my path and my story to today.
Awesome. That's super awesome to that just journey that you just shared. And I'm excited to dive into some of what you've got going on right now. I know that you've said that one of your expertises is in acquisitions and networking, and I'd love to know how that's helped you grow your syndication business.
Great question, Sujata. So I, in the earlier days when we were going after some smaller properties, um, though it was through networking, and then direct to owner was what was really helping us find our deals. Um, and that part of it was, we back in Springfield, I'm one of the co-founders of the Western Mass Real Estate Investor Group, so that helps us, with acquisitions, and disposition too, and then just reaching out to homeowners. it seems that part of it seems to be a little bit more difficult when they're bigger properties, because some often those might be in entities and multiple owners, or trying to get through the layers of management and what have you. But when it was on the smaller side and starting, it was really, picking up the phone and talking direct to owners. And I would say in our first couple of our first half of our syndications were either through a broker relationship or a direct to owner, just contacting owners and putting that together. Um, and I was finding that the MLS was just a really, the multiple listing service was really a tough place to go, because you're just competing. You're competing to pay the top dollar there, and so this was a much better way. And what I was realizing more and more in multifamily and apartments, when the property does get listed, it's been already picked through. So it really comes down to the deep relationships that we have with brokers now. Now it's putting more of my energy in relationship with brokers.
Okay, so are you concentrating your broker relationships in your specific market, Springfield, or in multiple markets?
In multiple markets now. My partner started broker relationships in the Maine area. I have a strong network in Springfield that I've developed over the last 7, 8 years now, and then starting those relationships now in the Los Angeles Long Beach market.
Hmm. Yeah, and would you say that, do you systematize that process of building relationships, or how do you stay on top of that?
That is a great question. I wish I was more systematized. Um, but that's not the case. I, I kind of keep it to the brokers back east. I know the ones that um, are targeting our criteria, and so that's just a handful, and they keep coming back to us because if we're gonna put an offer in, we're gonna close the deal, and no one wants to get into a deal, get through escrow, and not be able to close. So we've developed that trust with them. There's a small handful of them, and it always warms my heart when I get a note saying, "Hey, I got this property. You want to take a look at it?" And I look at it, and if it's a no, like I always want to make sure I let them know as soon as possible and why, and then. And then you see that if we're passing on it, then you see it hit the MLS or LoopNet a couple days later. And it's like, no, feel kind of special that came to us before, because of our relationship, because of our reputation, before it got out to the market.
Awesome. Yeah. So important to have those broker relationships to be able to get the best deals. And now, why don't we dive into your last deal, the sports center in Maine, which I'm personally invested in. I'd love to have you share about how you found that property, and just anything else you want to share about the deal.
Sure. And so honored that you joined us on this in this venture here with the Sports Center in Saco, Maine. So it's going to be a really fun and exciting project. Um, it is a multi-use facility. It's a sports facility that has a blend of medical and youth athletics. So medical being orthopedics, chiropractor, and then on the youth sports, it's volleyball, baseball, and gymnastics. And that came to us through one of my partner's broker relationships, and that one was more uh, familial. It was his sister-in-law, or his wife's best friend is the broker over there, and she brought us a number of deals, and this one seemed great, and it was a bit serendipitous. It used to be a hockey team that was in that sports center, and that hockey team left the Portland area and moved to Springfield, Mass area. So there was a kind of Saco and Springfield somehow connected in the world, and then we connected with it. So thrilled about that. There's a lot of there's not a lot of vacancies, but there's a couple of vacancies that we can fill up there. We're having conversations with Dunkin' Donuts. We're having conversations with catering companies, dance studio, um, different sports management companies about like uh, subleasing some of the space to do like pickleball or pick up basketball. Um, so a lot of good things there, and there's a lot of land too that we're exploring in developing, either putting out more fields, some more buildings. So we've got quite a bit of environmental pieces that we've got to hurdles that we've got to overcome, but uh, there's a lot of promise there. So it looks good. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And just to touch on one aspect of the deal, one of my priorities is to invest in what I believe to be recession resistant assets. And this is really the first deal that I've done that's kind of more in the retail space rather than a traditional multifamily self storage, mobile home park, et cetera. And so I'd love for you to speak to what is sort of compelling about this from a, risk adjusted basis.
Oh, great question. Um, Youth athletics is not going away, and it is just getting bigger and bigger uh, by the day. And then with a company like Three Step that came in, that's a national youth athletics center that or management company. They're just looking to increase, and this has been big business for a little while. And then I know coming from California, one of the initial questions that we were getting from our investors, because we were so colored by what was happening here in California and how severe the lockdowns have been. Well, no, that place must have been empty for the entire year. Like that's not the case. The rest of the world didn't operate like California or New York. They were certainly shut down for the first 2 months after COVID, but then it was business as normal or as COVID normal moving forward. So they continued to utilize facilities, athletics were going on, and those were kind of the saving graces for families to give some activities for their kids and keep that going on and have some kind of level of normalcy. And then on the orthopedic side and anything on the medical side, that's going to be very important as well. So we're seeing more and more energy going into sports, sports training, and then the youth athletics. So I felt like this was going to be a really strong play. I would put another note on that is because this is a large building, if perchance athletics was not going to happen, and fast forward a couple of years and no kid wants to play sports anymore, and they want to just do electronic sports, and they want to be YouTubers like my kids, it's a large facility that can be an industrial play, and industrial has been probably the hottest asset class um, uh, besides multifamily. It's hotter than multifamily probably nationally right now, and so that was a strong backup.
Yeah, that is that is very cool. And also having a backup plan, a backup use for your any property that you own is I think a really wonderful um, uh, opportunity to have if something changes.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about what was compelling about the Ironside Sports Center from a market perspective.
Uh, it's south of Portland, Maine, suburban. It that there were a number of things that made it attractive. One was a market that Brandon, my partner, knows, so that's very important to us. Two, boots on the ground, so there's family over there, and so far we've put our energies in investing where we have understanding of that market and boots on the ground, because I mean, you can trust property management companies, you can vet them, but it's always good to have someone that you absolutely know, trust, or related to that can go over and kind of give you their perspective on what's going on. So that was very important. Portland, Maine, also during the pandemic, it had become the Portland area hit the top 10 list of growth cities. Uh, so it has a great deal of amenities, but still has space, and space had been a premium for folks trying to push out of the major metros. And then additionally, um, this is Saco is just 17 miles south of that, and so it was a facility that the more people that we talked to, either from Massachusetts or Maine or New Hampshire, were aware of this facility, use this facility. So that's what attracted us to that. And Portland, Maine, 40% of the Maine's population is around Portland.
Definitely. It's, I think it's a fantastic area, partially because of what you've told me, and also because of my own research that I do as part of my passive investing. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I'd also love for you to share with the listeners a little bit about the development potential. It's one of the things that I found compelling about the offering was the development potential. The deal is already exciting on its own, but it's always nice to have a potential upside, even if it's a bit unknown and there are some obstacles to that. And so share with the listeners a little bit about the development potential at Ironside.
Sure. So for this the sports center, there is a 5,700 square foot cold storage building that's right out there in the parking lot. There's been plans that are developed already that could create a 35,000 square foot indoor multi-use facility, multi-use turf facility. So right away we could go in and start develop. We could take that down, develop there, and not have any issues with environmental or anything like that. Or we could look to repurpose that 5,700 square foot space as well. So right away, there's an option use what we have existing, or do a development, and very few hurdles there. The other part of it is it sits on 24 acres of land. They're dry wetlands. So the hurdles in that it will be the environmental piece of being on wetland. The city is developing, and there has been development on dry wetlands right in that area. So it looks like the city is open to it. Depending on what kind of development, how deep you go, and so that's the piece that we're looking into, and that would be very exciting for the investors. As now if you can develop on that, then you can break that off, sell that create another LLC, sell that to the LLC. Now you get money going back to the investors. Either they get as distribution or take to reinvest into another LLC, and it's like almost splitting a stock, if you will. So that creates some great opportunity for everyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks for touching on that. I am super excited to be in that deal. And it's not necessarily as cookie cutter as some of the other deals that I'm more typically in, although every deal is unique, but it is very exciting. I'm a sports enthusiast myself, and just found the whole investment thesis very compelling. So, Bob, I'd love to hear about what one of your passions is relating to real estate. And I know you've mentioned that transforming communities is something that's really important to you. Could you speak to that?
Oh yeah, thank you for that. That was one of the beautiful things when I was doing house flips was you'd always you take this rundown house and transform that, and then you get neighbors coming over and like, thank you so much. That was such an eyesore for a long time. Now you beautified the community, and I feel we can do that with our properties as well. Um, one, just taking care of the properties, creating curb appeal, giving safe, quality places to live. And then there's sometimes that these are tough properties, tough tenancy. Um, I had one where it was an 18 unit building I bought, my wife and I bought, and I knew it was going to be rough, but maybe I was naive on how rough. And it was high level of crime and drug dealing. And I evicted 14 out of 18 tenants in a six month period. And that came
Wow.
at a huge cost to us. And remarkably, those tenants that I was evicting, they were all paying rent. So there was no like non-payment of rent issues, but it was the safety and quality and for the neighborhood and for the good tenants. And we didn't get any help from the city, like no police help or anything like that. We had to work it through the courts, and we eventually did that and transformed that building. And even we've got the mailman saying now, thank you. I feel safer delivering mail here. And when you get that from the mailman, you feel pretty good. I mean, the tenants are overjoyed, the long-standing ones that now feel safe. And that really feels good. That really feels good. We've been very successful at transforming buildings like that. It's not one I want to do all the time. Sometimes you need a break from something like that, and those have been some sleepless nights. But I love that part of it. I love that part of it, and just watching that change and feeling good about it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I can definitely relate to that. Once I had some tenants of similar with similar issues, and when they moved out, the tenants across the way, they basically had a party where they watched like all their stuff getting loaded up into the U-Haul and packed away. And I just felt like, oh, finally I did something right. um, yeah. So that's great. I love that there's, improving communities. It's not always smooth sailing, but ultimately what we do with real estate is we can provide opportunities for communities to improve and be nicer places for folks to live with more dignity and just clean, good management. So thanks for sharing a bit about that. All right, Bob, I want to take a moment to shine the spotlight on you and tell the listeners anything, how they can get in touch with you, and anything else you'd like to share.
Oh, thank you so much. I still believe in the phone. So 310-922-5436. Love to have conversations with people, learn about what they like and what they're looking for. Or you can find me at cp-propertygroup.com. Um, and then my email is the same, bob at cp-propertygroup.com. And then we do about 2 or 3 syndications a year. So if you have listeners that are in that boat, that they like to write a check and more importantly like to collect checks but don't want to deal with tenants and toilets in the middle, then syndications may be something to think about.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. Bob Couture from CP Property Group. Thanks so much for coming on, Bob, and we'll see you next time.
Such an honor. Thank you, Suja.
And